sampling. The easiest way to show you how to sample is with some very simple vocal samples. First, turn the record level knob all the way down. Then, plug your microphone into the input. Turn the microphone on. Turn the monitor knob up halfway. Then slowly turn up the record knob to about 9 o'clock. Now we should be able to hear ourselves talk through the monitor speaker. Push the function 1 button labeled record, and you will see page 1 of record mode in the readout. It says, name of sample to be recorded, tone. One note, you cannot dial pages in record mode. You have to use the page buttons. Okay, the first thing we have to do is to name the sample to be recorded. I also suggest you include the original pitch of the sample being recorded, C3, D3, F#4, etc. So let's name the sample voice C1. Press letter, then use the control knob to dial in the letter V. Press the arrow cursor to move to the next space. Dial in O and press the arrow cursor again. Then dial in I. Repeat these functions and dial in C and E. Use the space button to eliminate any letters. Dial in number. And then C1. Okay, press enter or simply go to the next page. It says, name of program for monitoring, monitor. So repeat the functions in page 1. Okay, let's move up to page 3, sample type. This page gives you a choice of 3 ways to record your sample. It will automatically record in normal mode unless you choose to use the velocity crossfade, soft number 2 or loud number 3. This lets you play 2 different samples by hitting the same note at different velocity. Let's work with a normal sample type first and then come back and work with the velocity crossfade later. Press page, and this brings us to page 4, audio bandwidth. Audio bandwidth measures the frequency response of the sample, or how many pictures of the waveform we take a second. The higher the bandwidth, the clearer the resolution of the sample, and with better high-frequency response. But remember, higher bandwidths take more memory too. The thing that's great about the S-900 is that we can adjust the frequency response of each sample independently, from as low as 3,000 hertz to as high as 16,000 hertz. A lot of sampling time is done between 7,000 hertz and 12,000 hertz, so be sure to experiment with these lower bandwidths. Or you can sample it at a higher bandwidth, 12,000 hertz to 16,000 hertz, and then re-sample it at half bandwidth on page 9 in the Edit Sample section. For now, though, let's set the audio bandwidth all the way up for stun, 16,000 hertz, and move to page 5. This page sets the overall time of the sample from as low as 250 milliseconds, a quarter of a second, to as long as 63,110 milliseconds, or a little over 63 seconds. If we sample at 16,000 hertz, full bandwidth, we get almost 12 seconds of sampling time. But if we sample at 3,000 hertz, the lowest bandwidth, we can get 63 seconds of sampling time. If you choose too long a sample time, you can always truncate, cut off the beginning or the end of the sample, and discard before start or after the end on page 9 of the Edit Sample section. For now, though, let's dial in 3,000 milliseconds or 3 seconds. Press page and move to page 6. This section lets you assign your sample to a pitch or note on the keyboard. Since our sample is voice C1, let's assign it to C1. So simply dial up C1 or MIDI note number 36 with the control knob, or simply hit the C 2 octaves below middle C. Then move to page 7. This section lets you choose 3 different ways to trigger your sample recording. Number 1, any key, means that you can start sampling when any key on the keypad is pushed. Number 2 lets you start sampling when you activate a foot switch plugged into the front of the unit. Number 3 lets you trigger the sampling when the audio signal is greater than the threshold level set by the control knob. Let's push number 3 and see what happens. The T you see is your trigger level, so adjust the threshold with the control knob and speak into the mic. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Now you can see a record level from left to right. If you need to adjust the record level, simply use the red record knob on the right. Once you have the correct level set, push the page button and go on to the next page. Now, as soon as the audio signal from the mic is greater than the threshold trigger, the S-900 will immediately start recording. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we just recorded a sample. So move to page 8. Press enter and listen to our sample. 1, 2, 3. Now press C3 on your keyboard. 1, 2, 3. You should be hearing the same thing. Now, if you play up higher on the keyboard,
1, 2, 3.
the sample will get higher and faster. If you go lower, it will sound lower and slower.
1, 2, 3.
That's due to sampling technology, but very useful if you want to play music. Now, that wasn't too bad.
1, 2, 3.
Let's go back and use the velocity crossfade. Remember, velocity crossfade is when you can assign 2 sounds to one key and determine which sound is heard by how hard you hit the key. In order to do this, we need to record a soft sample and a loud sample. Let's record the soft sample first. So let's go back to page 1 and name our sample Soft Loud. Push letter, dial an S, space, leave the O, F, now T, space, L, O, U, D. Then move to page 3 and choose our sample type. Let's choose soft, number 2. Now page through to audio bandwidth and dial in 16,000 hertz. Okay, go to the next page and set the recording time for 2 seconds. Let's go to the next page. Assign your sample to C3. Next, start with number 3, your audio level. Set your threshold and record your sample. Soft. Soft. Okay, let's go to the next page and listen. Soft. Okay, now let's go back and record the loud sample.